All right, now let's come back to 310. All right, 310. Here it talks about the exempt entity or a fund management company. All right, and similar rule apply as to how the exempt entity or the fund management company to satisfy the MAS in regard to the fit and proper criteria. All right, similar idea or similar notion. Look at 310A, all substantial shareholders or equivalent persons and persons who control directly, indirectly, not less than 20% of the voting power or such equivalent decision-making power in the exempt entity. Right? You're talking about bank, that must be that will apply. Acquire or hold directly or indirectly not less than 20% of the issued shares or such equivalent share of ownership of the exempt entity. Right? And similarly, under 310B, each of its key officers do meet the fit and proper criteria of these guidelines. And similarly, proper and appropriate recruitment policies, adequate internal control systems, procedures, etc. Okay, so that refers to the general considerations that MAS will look at in determining whether a relevant person is fit and proper. Right? Now let's look specifically into the three components of the fit and proper test. Right? Now the first component is honesty, integrity, and reputation. Right? Now honesty, integrity, and reputation covers 3.11, 3.11 under A1, 3.11 from A all the way down to P. All right. So A all the way down to P gives you examples of what is meant by honesty, integrity, and reputation. Right. I just want to do a sampling of some of the things. It is pretty long. I do not like to read to you. So if you cast your eye down the page from A to P, now you will have a flavor of what MAS means, all right, when they say you must be honest, you must have integrity, and you must have good reputation, right? Otherwise, you are considered to be not a fit and proper person, right? You are not a fit and proper person to be in the financial advisory services industry, right? So A clearly says a person has been refused the right or restricted in his or his right to carry out any trade, business or professions for which a specific license, registration or other authorization is required by law in any jurisdiction, underline any. Alright? So if the applicant or a applicant being a corporation or a natural person being you or I, right, natural person, right, if that person has been denied, all right, a license or registration to practice any trade or profession, then that person is considered not fit and proper. All right, it has something to do, probably honesty and integrity and reputation. All right, this guy, well, some jurisdiction, some country has said no to this particular applicant or this natural person, all right, to practice his trade, his profession. And because of that, in any jurisdiction, then the person is deemed not fit and proper. All right, B talks about a prohibition order under any act administered by the MAS or has been prohibited from operating in any jurisdiction by any financial services regulatory authority. All right, so appeal has been issued, and MAS says, oh, you're not honest, you do not have the integrity, and reputation is yucks, all right? Something like that. All right, quickly look at C, paragraph C. You have been censured, disciplined, suspended, refused membership or registration by the MAS or any other regulatory authority. An operator of a market, trade repository or clearing facility, any professional body or any government agency, whether in Singapore or abroad. Okay, and then D talks about any complaint made reasonably and in good faith relating activities that are regulated by the MAS. Right? Not necessarily under the Financial Advisors Act, but under any activity, any form of business regulated by the MAS, right? Right. Then E talks about being a subject of any proceedings of a disciplinary or criminal nature, right? So if that person is being charged in court or being convicted in court under any law, under any jurisdiction, then well, too bad. You are deemed not to be honest, having integrity, or have a bad reputation, right? So and so on, right? As I say, I don't want to read to you, so you cast your eye down the page, you will see that's very broad, right? Okay. Right? So that covers the honesty, integrity, and reputation bit, right? Maybe look at J, right? So even if you have abetted another person in breach of any laws, right? So you are an abettor, right? So you abetted any person, or you're an accomplice, all right? Or you're part of a party to any breach of any laws, all right? Or regulations, business rules, or codes of conduct, whether Singapore or abroad, right? So it's very, very broad. Look at N, untruthful or providing false data, misleading data to the MAS, or being uncooperative, right? You're being uncooperative. So MAS says, hey, no, then you are not honest, and so forth. Okay, let's move on. Now, what I want to draw your attention to is actually under O, right? Paragraph O, under subsection 1, 2, 3, and 4, right? Now, has been dismissed or asked to resign from office, right? So if somebody dismissed you from the job or asked you to resign from office, from employment, a position of trust, or fiduciary appointment. Now, fiduciary simply means an appointment in good faith, right? You need to be in good faith, honest to the company or the person who appoint you, right? So you are fiduciary in Singapore or anywhere else, huh? So therefore, if you have been dismissed, right? In other words, from office, employment, or position of trust, or even as a fiduciary, maybe as a trustee, for example, then you are deemed not to be fit and proper, right? And paragraph 6, acting as a director, you have been disqualified from acting as a director, or even disqualified from acting in any managerial capacity, right? So that is also counted. Now, what is interesting is actually P for Penang. In addition to points A to O, where the relevant person is carrying on business in or is acting as a representative in respect of providing credit rating services, is or has been in observance of the code of conduct for credit rating agencies, right? So that point also is quite interesting. Okay, so I leave you with that one. Now that's A1. Now A2 talk about competence and capability. Now here it refers to whether the applicant has the track record, if it's a corporation, all right, or if it is a natural person, whether it has a satisfactory past performance or expertise or experience in relation to the services that you are going to provide, all right? And in this case, it's also Singapore and abroad or elsewhere, right? B, where the relevant person is an individual like you and I, but who is assuming concurrent responsibilities, right? That means we're holding two jobs or doing two things, where such responsibilities would give rise to a conflict of interest, right? So you have heard cases or you have read cases in the newspapers where a conflict of interest is often present. All right, for example, when a lawyer acts for two parties, all right, in a property transaction, all right, so that will be a conflict of interest situation. Okay, or otherwise impair his ability to discharge his duties in relation to any activity regulated by MAS under the relevant legislation. So as far as a lawyer is concerned, of course, it's governed by the Legal Profession Act. That's the example I gave you. But here is regard to activity regulated by the MAS, meaning to say financial services, banking services, and the like. All right. All right. So if there's a person who have concurrent responsibilities and a conflict of interest situation arises, so that can be looked at as being affecting the competence and the capability of the relevant person, right, who is the individual. Right? Then C provides you with more details. Activity regulated by MAS under the FAA, the IA, the PSA, and SFA, and the TCA. Okay? A relevant person is an institution, right? And that applies as well. Okay? Alright, so you cast your eye down the page D, E, and then F, right? So that relates to what the MAS will consider as being competent and capable, right, to discharge the role and functions. Alright, and if you look at the D and E and F, it relates to examination requirements. Alright, you look at the qualifications, you look at experiences, alright? Maybe just to give an appreciation as well, just put the last point there under A2 3.12 F. Alright, in relation to an appointed actuary or a certifying actuary, right? So whether the actuary has satisfactory past performance or expertise, indicating knowledge of the local life or general insurance market. Alright, so the MAS under this guideline is very specific. Alright, so it addresses different types of persons, natural persons, whether those persons are competent and capable, right? So paragraph F relate to the appointment of an actuary or a certifying actuary, right? So that's number one, whether the actuary has satisfactory past performance or expertise, right, including knowledge of the local life or general insurance market. 2, whether the appointed actuary is a fellow of a Singapore Actuarial Society. Now that's a membership thing that we have talked about earlier. And C, whether a certifying actuary is a member of the SAS and is a fellow of an association recognized by International Actuarial Association. Alright, so you can see it's specific. Alright, that relates to the second component of the fit and proper criteria, meaning to say competence and capability. Now let us take a look at the last component, that's financial soundness under A3. Alright, 3.13 says similar things, right? That the factors the MAS will consider are below, but they are not limited to what has been stated therein, right? Now A is very general, is or has been, currently or in the past, unable to fulfill any of its, meaning to say the applicant, or his or her financial obligations, whether in Singapore or elsewhere. Right? So that's very general. Has entered into a compromise or scheme of arrangement with its or his or her creditors, or made an assignment for the benefit of its or his or her creditors. Being a compromise or scheme of arrangement that's still in operation, whether in Singapore or elsewhere. Right? That means you are in debt. Right? And then C talks about unsatisfied debt. Right? The court has passed a judgment, and there's a judgment debt against that particular person, that particular natural person, and that person is unable to pay off the debt. So it is unsatisfied debt. If that be the case, then that person is not financially sound, and therefore it violates the third component of the fit and proper test. It fails the third component. Alright. Then D is quite clear cut. Individual person bankruptcy action in Singapore or elsewhere, adjudicated bankrupt, an undischarged bankrupt, right, or are subject to similar restrictions as a bankrupt in elsewhere, overseas, again not financially sound. Alright, in relation to a company under E, a corporation then has been winding up, alright, being dissolved under judicialship, receivership, management, scheme of arrangement and the like. So this applicant as a corporation, alright, is considered not fit and proper. And under E4 there, has been a subject to any other process outside Singapore that is similar to 1 to 3 above. So it's across the board. Okay? Alright, so that ends the fit and proper criteria test.